Soupy whip. Rawr.
Are you a freak that enjoys card games, getting your grubby little hands on the rarest of cards, just so you can be below average to mediocre at the game? Or maybe you are a refined specimen of a human being, loving the beautiful things in the world, like gambling. You may imagine these two archetypes have no relation, but what if I told you there was a game that could please both these groups simultaneously? You would probably slap me across the face and make me cry! Well, please don't actually do that since I'm about to tell you about that game. Dash of the Ruler, and today I'm reviewing the roguelike card game, Slay the Spire, that you probably have heard about. If not, or if you don't know, the basic premise of the game is you start with a deck of fairly simple cards, and over the course of a run, find new cards to upgrade your deck as you fight harder and harder enemies and bosses. You can also unlock other run-altering things like relics, which are constant buffs or sometimes debuffs that affect your combat without the need of playing a card. There are also a variety of characters to pick in the base game that have different possible cards and a different starting relic. This means you can have the classic roguelike experience of completely different runs, while having the fun of deck building, while also still managing to be a virgin. Nice. The combat looks like this. Here you can see the cards you draw each turn, and a certain amount of energy you can use for playing your cards, which is fun as it gives the idea that even though some cards may be pretty powerful, they may cost more energy than you have, making them awkward to use, especially as you discard your hand each turn, so you really have to consider which cards you can afford to use and not use each turn. It's also pretty attractive visually, as you can pretty easily see all the buffs and debuffs clearly and nicely by hovering over them, making it compact but effective, kind of like my peak. I also really like this one specific thing about the audio options. You can turn off the music specifically, but keep combat sounds, which is pretty common in games, but really nice here, since sometimes you may want to listen to some other music while grinding a run, but you still want the satisfaction of a nice sound effect for playing your card, though the base music is fine enough. Outside of combat, you have a bunch of other tiles, things like elites, which are like mini-bosses that give better loot than normal combats, but are much harder. Or things like event tiles, which sometimes are just combats, but usually are some cool event, like getting mugged in the street and losing some of your money, that you could have used in shop tiles to buy cards and relics. Rest tile, which is another nice option to get the option to rest and heal a bit, or upgrade your card, which in most cases, you should be upgrading your cards as much as possible since that can make them way stronger. But it's kind of a cool interaction since there's like this risk of like, do I not heal so I can upgrade my card, or do I heal because I don't want to get one shot by the next mental damage I take? Other than the rest, shop, combat, and event tiles, you have chest tiles, which are just loot you occasionally get, usually about halfway through each level, and the boss tiles, which are, the boss obviously, for each level before you move on to the next. You'll have 3 levels to beat, each being progressively harder, and you know there may be possibly some secrets outside of those levels, but I'll never tell. Overall, this formula has been incredibly successful and satisfying. In fact, it's actually been so successful, it has inspired many clones of the game, just like how other YouTubers keep stealing my videos. Though, one could argue, Slay the Spire itself and many apparent clones are actually copying Dream Quest, a game a friend recommended me. This is like the OG roguelike card game, as you can tell by the simplicity and endearing art. Regardless though, that's just the basics of Slay the Spire. It's pretty simple, and honestly the base game provides at least a couple runs before it gets boring. But personally, if the base game was all there was, I wouldn't be making this review. The base game isn't that crazy to me on its own. But see, this game has Steam Workshop. If you're not aware, Steam Workshop is a magical place where if you have any issue with a game, you can see if some noble gamer has made a modification that pleases you. For many games, this goes about as you expect. Many big babalooby mods and cheats. I'll try to put any mods I show and any mods I think you should try in the description, but I'm going to talk about some specifically since, to be honest, there's not much more to explain about the gameplay. There's no story or anything, so I already told you how the game works. Before you try mods though, I suggest playing the base game at least 1 or 2 runs to get the vibe, because frankly a lot of the mods are just based off base game mechanics, so if you don't know them, you might not appreciate what's going on, and you might also just be really confused. But anyways, getting into the mods, one of the most cool and contact-packed mods is Downfall. This mod basically, instead of playing as a hero ascending the spire to beat a final boss, you are one of the evil bosses and have to descend the spire killing heroes. It's actually super cool since there's legit more characters than base game, and in my opinion, most of them are more fun and interesting than the base game characters. There's also a ton of custom events that happen, and all the mechanics are changed because, well, you know, now you're the villain. I high-key recommend for this one especially, you need to play the base game so you can appreciate all the small touches they make, because otherwise it might just, you're going to miss out on a lot of beautiful things. Also, one crazy thing about a lot of these mods, in spite of the game being quite old, many new mods are being made constantly, and many classics are being updated. Like, I remember when I initially got this mod, it didn't have one of the last unlocks bosses it has now, and the new one's really cool. But to unlock each boss, you need to do a run of the one before it. If you don't like a character though, and want to see the next, you could always just start a run and immediately give up, but where's the fun in that? At least try to play the slime character. I don't care if you don't like slime. You should be a bit careful though with this mod since it's a total conversion, which means that if you try to run other mods with it, it may have some sort of problem because some mods may be trying to access the same files as Downfall and they might be trying to do different things, which could cause some crashing or strange effects. The next mod, however, works really well with pretty much every non-total conversion mod. It's called Packmaster. Basically, you get even more gambling, as when you start a run, you get a random set of card packs you draft into your run to get to pick from once you're in, and there are a lot of packs. This is really cool, as there's some strategy in picking packs that work well with other packs you already have, though, to be honest, a lot of the packs are already pretty broken by themselves, so I recommend pairing this with a bunch of other mods since generally they give more content and more difficulty. Things like Replay the Spire, which is a classic you really should get, and things like Library of Ruina or the Hollow Knight map, which completely change the Spire and the fights and generally make it a bit harder and longer. Overall though, these two mods, Packmaster and Downfall, are amazing and will probably give you possibly hundreds of hours by themselves because of how much versatility they have and how much fun stuff there is to explore. But if you ain't vibing with those, there's a ton more, especially if you speak Chinese. But even if you don't, you could also just guess what the cards say based off what they do. I actually did that once where I did kind of like a challenge where I didn't know what any of the cards did until I played them because it was in, Mandarin. And it was pretty actually fun, honestly. Anyways, to finish the video, I'll give a couple of more honorable mentions, which I'll put in specific sections. So if you're looking for a specific type of mod, like maybe you're a furry and you're looking for a furry type mod, it'll be in the furry section. If I have one. I don't know if I'm going to have one. The script's not done yet. For characters, I'll start with the Runesmith and the Professor. The Runesmith is a character that crafts runes that have various effects. They also have some other cool mechanics like upgrading their cards in the middle of battle to be stronger. Overall, it's fun and has cool crafting elements and pretty nice art for a mod. The Professor, on the other hand, is cool because you're basically crafting spell cards mid-fight that makes it very dynamic as each card is getting stronger over the course of the fight. For map mods, there's things like Gensokyo, which is a classic and very popular map based off something in Touhou, I think. And to be honest, in general, Touhou is a massive inspiration to this modding community, so if you enjoy that, you'll have a really good time. But even if you don't really know Touhou like me, you'll still enjoy this as it gives a ton of new enemies, music, art events, items, cards. It's a whole thing. My only issue is I've noticed it crashes sometimes if I have a bunch of random mods, so I would generally only use smaller additions like Replay the Spire that are almost always safe to be running. There's also Library of Ruina, which is also a classic, in which you similarly have all the enemies change, but this one is a lot edgier, since the Library of Ruina game, well, is a lot edgier, and that's what this is based off. To be honest, I really like the lore of this mod, but it is a lot darker, so just keep that in mind if you don't want a darker mod. If you want a thing to combo with this, I think Packmaster is pretty good, since you get a lot of variety with Packmaster, and the mod is very long. Library of Ruina is very long, so having a bunch of cool cards from Packmaster helps to kind of mitigate the length of it. One more mod that's kind of like a mix between a character mod and a full conversion mod is the Animator. This is really nice if you like anime since all the characters are based off, well, anime. Personally, I don't watch anime much because I'm a busy guy. I gotta keep up my YouTube video schedule, consistently uploading, but even I enjoyed it a lot since there's a ton of fun mechanics. Finally, if you're looking for horny mods, there's quite a few. I'm not going to link them though, you can find them yourself, you pervert, but some I think are personally alright. For example, the Buxom, it has breast suspension as a mechanic, which is pretty funny. Also, there's Feminizing the Spire, which has an 18+ mode, though to be honest, the base mode is already 18+, if we're being completely honest. There's others that you can find pretty easily, but all my money is made from these videos, so I can't be getting demonetized for inappropriate content, so I'm going to finish that there. Overall, though, I think I'm going to give the Spire of Slaying a rating with mods and without, because it's pretty different. But without mods, I think it's a pretty strong 7.5 out of 10. This is because I think the gameplay is pretty satisfying, maybe about 8.5 out of 10. The visuals and sound design are both around an 8, but I just think it's not as replayable without mods, and as much as I like the personality, without mods, it just kind of gets lackluster. But with mods, this is an easy 9 out of 10. Since you get like 9.5 out of 10 gameplay combined with some crazy cool card arts and music from the mods, pretty much infinite high quality content, it's really a blast. Anyways, that's that. I'm glad you temporarily delayed your Goon session to watch my video. You may now continue. Have a nice day.